That's
Try it again. Ask him to try again.
Commissioner Sam, try it again.
Test, test. Oh.
yeah, there we go. Does everybody have it? Now, should mic work?
This is crazy.
Doug, is your light on?
Okay.
All right.
It's off.
You can
No.
have
Yours is off.
Test, test.
The last two mics are.
They'll come on in a minute.
We always let Les speak first.
Got it.
Everything's.
There we go.
Okay.
Until you want to continue. If not, you'll.
Are we all ready?
Yeah.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Peace River Manasota Regional Water Supply Authority Board of Directors meeting for June 4th, 2025. Let the record show Commissioner DeSoto, Langford, Bearden are present, and we have Assistant County Administrator Mark Cunningham sitting in for Ron Cutzinger today. If we could rise to the invocation given by Commissioner Elton Langford, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance.
Let us pray. Dear Heavenly Father, we come to you this morning, Lord. We lift up our first responders, law enforcement, and the military, Lord. We just pray that you keep your hand of protection upon them as they do their best to protect us, Lord. Thank you for being in a country where we can meet like this and we can discuss the business that's at hand. And Lord, that we can lift up prayers to you. We thank you for the rain that you've been bringing us. And Lord, we just ask that you give this board the wisdom and knowledge today to make the decisions that would glorify you and best suit the people that we serve. We ask all these things now in Jesus' holy name. Amen.
Amen. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, I'd just like to recognize Commissioner Ken Doherty from Charlotte County is in the back, and we also have past board member Al Mayo. Welcome, gentlemen. And I see County Attorney for Charlotte County, Jeanette Knowlton, is here as well. We will move on to the host county remarks. Mrs. Hines, any remarks today?
Good morning, Commissioners. Thank you for being here today, and we're always happy to host you. Just giving you a nice, open DeSoto County welcome. That is the conclusion of my remarks.
Thank you. Okay, next we're going to go to public comments. Anybody wishing to address the board on an item on the consent agenda or regular agenda, or an issue that does not appear on the agenda, should complete a request to speak card and submit it to the authority's recording clerk before this public comment item. Is there anybody wishing to speak? Please come forward. You'll have 3 minutes. Okay, we see nobody coming forward, so we're going to move on to consent. Is there anybody who'd like to pull a consent item? I'll start to my right. Commissioner, anything? No, sir. I have nothing. Anything? Commissioner here? Okay. Do we have a motion to approve consent?
So moved.
Chair. We have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. Is there any further discussion? Is there any opposition to the motion? That passes unanimously. We will move on to regular agenda. Item 1, the water supply conditions report.
Hi, good morning. Katie Gilmore of your staff, here to present regular item number 1, our standing water supply conditions report. So first we'll go over the rainfall, river flow, withdrawals, storage conditions at our facility through May 15th. And then we'll go over the regional water supply deliveries to our customers in April of 2025. Okay, so first up, the rainfall, the Upper Peace River Basin. This is the average monthly rainfall. The blue dashed line shows you our historical average, and the green line is the actual rainfall received. This just goes through the end of the month of April. So as you can see, we've had below average rainfall through November, with very little rain through the end of this graph. However, we did start receiving rain second week, last week of May, and as you all know, these last several days, including today, we're getting some good rainfall again. We ended the month of May actually with an average of about 8 inches in the basin, which is slightly above our average. And the National Weather Service is predicting a wetter than normal next 3 months, June, July, and August. For our river flows, the red line is showing our minimum flow required for withdrawal. The blue is our historic monthly average, and the green is the river flow received. So this goes through May 15th. So as you can see, the river flows were quite low the last several months with the lack of rainfall. And in fact, it did drop below the 130, the red line there, to be allowed to withdraw about mid or early April, and it remained below through middle of May, about the 11th. However, the monthly average flow for May did increase with the rain that we have received, and it was about 220 CFS for the month of May, which is slightly below our average of 312, but getting close. The last day of the month, the 31st, the flow was up, and we're probably even higher today. Okay, for our withdrawals, so during the month of March and April, our average withdrawals for the total month were 19.6 for March and nothing for April. So with the river flows dropping below the 130, we weren't able to take any water off the river to put into the reservoir system during the month of April and through the middle of May. However, with the rains, we were able to start withdrawing again on May 16th. So I had updated this graph through the 15th. On the 16th, we had enough flow and good water quality to be able to start pulling some more water off the river. The average withdrawal for May ended up at about 16 MGD. The last several days we've been up closer to 20, and with these last few rains, we'll probably be able to go even a little bit higher coming up. All right, so that shows our surface water storage here. This is for the last 3 years. This is updated through May 15th again. So the typical seasonal pattern can be seen. The reservoir storage drops when we're not taking out the river because, of course, we're still pulling water out of the system to bring to the plant for treatment. So we weren't withdrawing from the river from April through May 15th, but of course still using the water, so you can see the normal pattern of the reservoir storage dropping. As of May 15th, we had about 4.8 billion gallons in the reservoir system. By the end of the month, we had only dropped a little bit to 4.7 because we were able to start putting some water back into the system. However, it wasn't quite as much as we were taking out. We're getting to the point now where we should be able to put in as much or more than we need for our daily demands. Looking at our ASR storage volume for the last 2 years, the blue line is the total volume in storage, and the red line shows the total usable volume, what we could actually pull back out for use. As we talked about the last several meetings, we recharged our system in September through December of 2024. It was in recovery until the month of April, where we did pull out some water, mostly for testing and sampling purposes. We recovered about 136 million gallons from the system. So that lowered our total storage to 8.67, slightly below where we were at the last meeting. That gives us a usable storage of 5.16 billion gallons. That's slightly higher than where we were this time last year. So if you roll all that up, the reservoir storage and the ASR storage to give an estimated days of supply based on those storage volumes. This is just for the month of April. So we had, at that point, 5.2 billion gallons in the reservoir system and also 5.2 billion gallons in usable ASR, giving a combined supply storage of 10.4 billion gallons. That equates to 348 days if you look at it in our average annual of 30 million gallons per day treatment, or as 348 days at our, 348 or 300 at the contractual allocation of 34.7. So looking at the end of May, since we did drop a little bit more, we had 330 and 286 days. So still plenty of storage in the system, and now we're getting to the point where we can start filling back up. Okay, changing over now to the total regional water production and use for the region in the month of April. The table here shows the authorities, members, and customers' water supply capacity and production for the month. So in April, the authority delivered 33.54 million gallons to the region. Our members and customers together delivered 66.22. So that gives a total regional production of just under 100 million gallons per day. Came up to 99.8. That includes the 4.01 that was delivered by Manatee to its non-authority wholesale customers, Town of Longboat Key, City of Palmetto, City of Bradenton. So if you take those off, then the total demand for the authority members and customers was 95.75. So demands were high, as it's typical for April. It is one of our driest months, so demands in the region are quite high. Also, we were doing the regional free flooring conversion at the end of the month, and so during that conversion period, there's a lot of flushing in your customer system to move the free flooring water through the system. So those two things contributed to the pretty high demands we had in April. All right, moving on to each individual customer and member now. First up is Charlotte County. So in April, Charlotte purchased 15.22 million gallons per day from the authority. They self-supplied 0.98 million gallons per day from their facility at Burnt Store, giving them a total use of 16.2 million gallons per day, which is about 84% of their total countywide capacity. For DeSoto purchased 0.74 million gallons per day from the authority and supplied 0.34, gives them a total use of 1.08, and that equals 73% of their capacity. Manatee County, of course, does not receive water from the authority, but they produced a total of 53.29 million gallons per day from their water supply facilities. 45.73 MGD of that was used to serve their retail customers. 4.01, as I mentioned before, went to their wholesale customers that are not authority members, Longboat Key, Palmetto, and Bradenton. And 3.55 million gallons a day was supplied to Sarasota County through their contract with them. So, as you can see here, they were slightly above their capacity listed here, but it's important to remember this capacity is their permitted capacity on an annual average, and is actually quite less than their treatment capacity at their facility. For Sarasota County, in April, they purchased 16.43 million gallons per day from the authority. They self-supplied 8.06 from their facility at Carlton, imported the water, from Manatee County, 3.55, giving them a total use of 28.03, which is 95% of their capacity. A change on this slide for this month, Sarasota and Manatee, their contract has changed as of April 1st. So Sarasota County now has a capacity of 4 million gallons. For Manatee, it dropped down from 5 on April 1st of this year. And the city of Northport purchased 1.15 from the authority, and they supplied 3.56 from their facilities at Mackhatchee Creek and Wally Park. Exchanged a small amount, giving them a total use of 4.7 MGD, which is 57% of their capacity. So that gives us the average annual regional use, which can be shown here for the water years 2014 through 2024, and our running 12-month average. As you can see here, in April 2025, the running 12-month average for the region was 90.28. That comes to 84% of our capacity. All right, the breakdown of the regional demand from the authority members and customers during April is shown here. Again, that total use was 99.76 million gallons per day, which is 93% of our available capacity, and that leaves 7.5 or 7% of unused capacity in the region for the month of April. All right, and just one more thing, we didn't get it on the agenda as an award item that we normally have, but we're proud to announce that our facility did win an award at this year's Florida Water Resources Conference. The Florida section of American Water Works Most Improved Class A Water Treatment Plant for 2025. And so our operations supervisor, Jimmy Dixon, is happy receiving it here at the conference. We have it on display down here if anyone would like to see it. We're just really proud of all the continued improvements and work that we put into the facility. We're constantly making sure we're proactive and maintain the facility so we can continue to provide water into the future. And now I'll take any questions you might have.
Any member comments, questions? Okay, thank you for that
Thank you.
presentation. Thank you. We're going to move on to item on the regular agenda, item 2, the 2025 legislative update. Mr. Manson, I believe you're going to take this.
Yes.
And this is also for informational purposes, no action required.
Correct. And as you probably know, the reason why Laura Donaldson isn't here to give you this, the lobbyist, is because the session is back in. So they were called back on Friday for this week. So she's in Tallahassee, and for the update, this is important because the items that I'm sure we're concerned about many items, but the items that we're very concerned about is the budget items. And the budget items haven't been decided yet. That's what's going on this week. The House and the Senate were billions of dollars apart. They have agreed to a total number, and this week is to sort out where all the chips, if you will fall with the total number that they've agreed to. So we can't give you an update on the part that's most important, which is the funding request. All those R's are still in play, but we don't know exactly where that's going to fall out. We hope by the end of the week that will be decided, but if not, then they'll reset and come back again. Basically, they have till July 1, and hopefully they're going to figure that out this week and be concluded, but we won't know until the week is over. So let's go ahead and advance through some of the slides. We'll keep going. The basic stuff. We know what happened in the legislature. Let's get to the bill. So just move on. One more. Okay, passed legislation. We're stopping here. This first bill we're talking about, this is actually passed, and this is going forward, and nothing's going to stop it. But this is the no fluoride bill. The idea that this isn't an issue for Peace River. I know it's not an issue for some of the other member governments, but the idea now is the Florida Department of Agricultural and Consumer Services will have a prohibition to add anything in the water that's not necessary to meet the state standards for water quality. The next slide. Salt and battery and utility worker. I'm trying to figure out if I can get one of these badges. The idea is that as sad as this sounds, that people that are working in utilities, especially those that are in areas that are close to roads and things like that, are being attacked. And so the legislature, this bill was already in place, and they basically strengthened the bill, increased the penalties, a clearer definition of utility worker, and then you have to wear some type of badge or identification. It could be a t-shirt or a shirt, what utility you're working for, so people know you're a utility worker, because there are crimes based off of those and penalties. Let's go next. Mitigation banks. This is an important one. You know, obviously, you know from the reservoir project that Peace River will have to buy, potentially buy mitigation credits. This process is actually going to make it, some areas in particular, it's not as much of an issue for us on our project, but there are not mitigation credits available. And there's no banks in the basin where you need the credits. And so the way they've addressed that is they said, well, if there's none in the basin where you need credits enough for your project, you can go to an adjacent basin. And if there's none there, then there's a whole process and there's a multiplier. This is similar to what the Army Corps does, to allow you to find your mitigation credits, you know, for your project somewhere in the state, and hopefully close to where the impacts occur. But it allows you to keep going further out until you find the credits sufficient to be able to meet your project needs. There also was a ability to be able to get more credits faster for the mitigation banks. So they just slightly increase the amount of credits you can get when you come in with a project and you start construction on a portion of it before you had to wait till it's completely done. Now they're releasing the credits prior. There's other issues in the bank. Those are the two major ones. Let's go to the next one, which is construction regulation. This is an interesting bill. It clearly is addressing an issue that some contractor had with local governments. I say that because the bill is tuned toward change orders. The idea that if you have a change order requested, there has to be a response within 35 days from local government, either approving or denying it. And then it goes into basically saying that prohibits you from putting into any kind of change order or change the contract where the contract itself, anything that would alter the prompt payment provisions, which are in the statutes, you know, pay within 30 days the invoice received for all government entities. So it's just kind of an interesting bill. It sounds like it was fixing a problem that someone had with local governments, perhaps not making a decision on change orders and just letting them languish. I don't know.
I have a question for you on the mitigation banks.
Sure.
Since we're doing the new reservoir, we're doing some on-site mitigation. Does that impact any of that?
It does, because our analysis is we're comparing the cost of on-site mitigation to off-site mitigation. So the idea is as we conclude those costs, it used to be we were only looking at the Mayaca Basin and Peace River Basins. Specifically, we needed credits from both, and there was a shortage in the Peace River Basin. So there is a whole mechanism you have to go to that takes time, which is money, to be able to transfer over and use credits in adjacent basins. That's done away with. So now we can buy Mayaca credits, and they're not enough available in the Peace River Basin. So it might slightly alter our cost analysis, but that's okay. It does, you know, it's a good thing. You know, it would provide for more competition on being able to get those credits in different basins. So it's a good thing. But yes, it affects us some.
Thank you.
Next one is Israeli bonds. It's very simple, so I'll just leave it up there. It prohibits local governments' investment policies from requiring a minimum bond rating for investing in Israeli bonds. Let's go to transportation. This one is specifically for public sewer transmission lines, and it's basically to prevent local governments from stopping a project that's been approved by FDOT or DEP for part of a septic to sewer conversion project. Obviously, we don't do sewer, but I know some of the member governments governments are wrestling with sewer issues, and this might be helpful. The next one is administrative procedures, Senate Bill 108. This is just slight modifications to rulemaking and some other issues like, when the rules automatically expire, it's prohibiting that from happening. So, things get a little more continuing. So a lot of tweaking in the APA Act.
This is a question of curiosity. You have the Israeli bond thing on there. Did we have some funds that are sitting on the sideline investing in Israeli bonds?
No, it just impacts local government, so she put it on there for you all, for in case that was an issue. We have no idea. I asked Laura, I said, is this an issue for any member government? She says, I have no idea. I don't know why this was in there, but it affects local governments, so I wanted to put it before you all.
All right, just curious.
I was too. Emergency, Senate Bill 180. This is if you stack up the hurricane emergency order bills that we have coming up, they help in permitting when you're in the middle of a design and all of a sudden, your hurricane hit, you can't go for another 9 months. You only have 5 years under your construction permits, and in some cases, your wetland delineation to hold. And if your construction gets delayed because of multiple hurricanes, they wanted to address that issue. They have somewhat, but this one now basically is taking everything back and saying, okay, if you had a wetland delineation and you worried about the tolling stacks up to give you enough time, we're going to retroactively go back and give you that to January 2023. So it all takes effect in July 1 of this year. So it's just basically some aid to developers or others who had permits but got waylaid by all the hurricanes, and to be able to continue to do their construction and not lose their permits and have them expire and not have their wetland jurisdictions expire. And then Resiliency Florida Trust, this is just re-upping it. It was going to expire, so they basically re-upped it again. Swiftman confirmations, this was all good news. Josh Gamblin from Arcadia is appointed, and Board Member Minton and Board Member Williamson are reappointed, so it was good. I'm glad to see that the reappointments are happening much more promptly now, and now we're getting a full board, and we have a representative from DeSoto County. So Laura puts on failed legislation. I always am of the one that I don't read dissents, they lost. So I don't see any reason to talk about failed legislation, but I will warn you that there is legislation out there like the Water Management District bill. They're doing just the budget, but they left the door cracked open to say if a bill affected the budget, that it could be potentially brought up in this budget cycle. And there are parts of the Water Management District bill, which was very extensive, that failed to go through. It may be brought in because there was a budget component there and funding components. And so they may try to bring that back into the session. This was a Water Management District bill, was a bill that was, supported by the Senate President. So it will be interesting to see if that's brought back up or if they just finish the budget and get out of Tallahassee. So I'm glad to answer any questions, but I will tell you, Laura will be back. When session's finally over, she'll be back at the August meeting to go over the session and go over the bills that passed. And then also, as soon as we hear about the budget and whether or not funds are going to come to the authority, we'll be sending out an email to all of you. Any other questions?
Any questions, comments? Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you for your patience.
We're going to move on to item number 3, the Integrated Regional Water Supply Plan for 2025. Mr. Jim Ito.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. I'll just do a quick introduction to this item. Today we're going to be presenting the final presentation on the 2025 Integrated Regional Water Supply Plan update. It is an action item. We will, at the end of the presentation, be requesting the board to accept the plan. Quick recap of the April board meeting. Staff and Carollo provided a presentation on the preliminary elements of the water supply plan to you. We gave you an overview of what the plan is, also what the components of the plan are, and we gave you an overview on the demand projections that are contained within the plan. Today we're going to provide you the second part of that presentation. We'll quickly recap what we covered in April. Then we'll give you an overview of the other components of the plan. Those include an inventory of water supply facilities, the capacities of those facilities, discuss the regional transmission system for delivering water, an overview on water conservation and reclaimed water supply, and lastly, potential future water projects that have been identified. Again, upon completion of the presentation, we'll be asking for you to accept the plan. And when we're done with that, we will then transmit that to Southwest Florida Water Management District for them to integrate into their own regional water supply plan, their 2025 update there. With that, I'll turn it over to Laura.
Good morning, everyone. Laura Bomberger with Coral Engineers here to present the plan. So you can see here the objectives of the plan, as Jim mentioned, were to inventory the existing water supplies and the treatment capacities within the region, project the most probable future water demand projections for the region, assess water conservation, identify the potential future projects for the long term, update the regional water supply transmission system and hydraulic model, and finally document the reclaimed water activities in the region and how that impacts water supply. So today I just wanted to give a brief overview of each report chapter, and then I'll have the motion to accept the report. So chapter 1 is an introduction and background. As Jim mentioned, the district is currently doing their regional water supply plan, which is required every 5 years. They'll use the authority's integrated regional water supply plan to inform their document, and this is done on a 5-year cycle per the Florida requirements. And I wanted to take the opportunity to thank everyone who provided input and collaboration to develop this document, because it is a very comprehensive regional plan. So chapter 2 has a comprehensive update of all the existing regional facilities, all the way from Lake Manatee Water Treatment Plant in the north, down to the Charlotte County Burnt Store System in the south. And you can see here all of those facilities, as well as the regional transmission system pipelines. And this table summarizes the existing regional water supply capacity for the authority, as well as all of the individual member government self-supplies, bringing the total available supply in the region to just under 107 million gallons per day. And as you know, the growth rate over the past 5 years has been pretty significant, averaging 4% per year over the past 5 years. And you can see here, over the past 20 years, the demand has grown from about 60 MGD up to almost 87 MGD last year, with some peaks and valleys throughout that time. So chapter 3 has that historical demand analysis, as well as the future projections. So we did complete a very comprehensive demand projection analysis using 7 different methodologies, similar to the regional plan, the previous plans. And we have a demand projection cone, or a range, that projects demands out through the 20-year period. On the high end of that range, it was the customer provided projections. Every year the customers and members provide projections, and when we compiled those ended up being the highest, and that reaches just under 146 MGD by 2045. And on the low end of the range, it was the projections based on Beaver medium population projections. And if that was the trend, we would only anticipate about 110 million gallons per day. But for planning purposes of this document, what we have done is pick the median projection, which is more reasonable for longer term planning. And over the 20 years, we would anticipate the region may see about 128 million gallons per day of demand by 2040. So this chart shows that data put together with the historical water usage in the black dots, as well as the low, median, and high projections in the green, blue, and red lines. And then you'll see 2 narrower lines, which represent the 5-year and 10-year historical trend lines. And you can see the past 5 years had that pretty steep trend line, which correlates very well with the customer provided projection, or the high range. However, the 10-year trend line correlates very well with the median projection, which is typically more indicative of the longer term projections that levels out those peaks and valleys over time. So this chart reflects the existing supplies that I talked about from chapter 2. For the authority supply on the bottom in the dark blue bar, that includes the ongoing surface water system expansion project capacity. And then the lighter blue bar is the existing customer self-supply. And then the median demand projection that we just spoke about is shown in the purple dashed line. And you can see that regionally, the existing supplies already meet that projected demand. However, previous reports have recommended that the region maintain a capacity buffer or capacity standard. It's a best management practice just to ensure you always have enough supply online. So that capacity standard is comprised of two components. First, bringing new supplies online before the demand reaches 90% of the capacity to always have a bit of a buffer. So for that, we add 10%. And then the second component is 6% of rotational capacity to provide water during emergency events or droughts to have, again, some resilience there. So that yields about 17% additional capacity to meet that 17% capacity standard. So you can see here that by about 2035, the region should bring on more supplies to maintain that capacity standard, which results in about 149 million gallons a day of capacity by 2045. Regarding conservation, that was done in conjunction with the demand projections just to see if additional conservation could potentially impact demands. However, the region already has demonstrated a very proactive stance on conservation. The district has a water usage goal of less than 100 gallons per person per day, and the region has been well below that for many years. In fact, for the past 15 years, it's remained pretty stable around 85 gallons per person per day. So again, conservation efforts have been prioritized, and reclaimed water usage also helps to lower the per capita. So to meet the long-term, needs out through 2045 and beyond, Chapter 5 identifies many different potential future water supply sources. They're shown here on a map and are categorized based on fresh groundwater, brackish groundwater, surface water, and high salinity water, which would be seawater or very high salinity groundwater. Some of these are still very conceptual. Some of them already have water supply permits in hand and are undergoing design. And the report includes a description, potential capacity, and cost estimate for each of those. In total, again, there was 25 different supply projects. You can see the breakdown here with a total potential capacity of just under 184 million gallons per day, confirming that there is adequate, water supply potential sources within the region. So this is the same chart we looked at earlier with two ongoing projects added as additional supplies or bars on top. One is the authority's brackish groundwater project, which, as you know, there already has been a well field drilling and testing program. You already have a water use permit, as well as a UIC permit for the concentrate, and the preliminary design has been completed. And that project could yield an additional 8 MGD of allocable supply to the region. Another project that's currently ongoing is the Manatee County Buffalo Creek project. Again, they already have a water use permit for this, and it's currently undergoing preliminary design. And based on the current permit, that could yield 3 MGD of finished water. So in total, with those two supplies, there is approximately, or there's anticipated to be, just over 137 million gallons per day. So these, with these two projects, you'll certainly be above the projected demand, but not yet to that capacity standard of 149. So there will need to be, around 12 MGD of additional supply to maintain that capacity buffer by 2045. And again, the report outlines many different projects that could fill that need. Switching gears to the transmission system, we did an update of the regional water transmission system hydraulic model to look at the velocity, pressures, delivery of all the different allocations. We evaluated the existing time period as well as all the way out to 2075 with potential anticipated flows through these pipelines in the long term, so that future pipelines could be designed for more of a 50-year life cycle. And we looked at your average annual allocations as well as max month and peak day to make sure that you could continue to meet all those allocations and delivery pressures that are in your contracts. So we confirmed the sizing and adjusted the sizing of some of the future pipeline projects, which you see here would be the 2C that would connect from the end of the 2B ongoing project up to Carlton, and then potential projects Phase 2B to Englewood Water District, and Phase 4 down to the Burnt Store area of Charlotte County. So the report has a description summary, timing and cost estimate for all the potential future transmission system projects, which you can see here in this table. And then Chapter 7 is on the reclaimed water regulatory framework. There's been several advancements to allow the use of highly treated reclaimed water for water supply. Some of those are listed here. And most significantly, FDEP adopted potable reuse rules in 2025, so there are now established rules and a framework to use highly treated reuse water as a potable supply. The chapter also includes case studies of where that's being done currently in Florida and in other states. So although reuse is a potential supply in the future for the authority, we didn't include it as one of the 25 projects because currently reuse is used as a very valuable resource for reclaimed water irrigation and other beneficial uses. And you can see here in this table by region the permitted wastewater facility capacity, the average annual flow in each county, how much was used as beneficial reuse, and then the resulting percentage. So regionally, the counties use about 66% of the wastewater flow for beneficial reuse, which is quite high and quite good compared to other states and other counties within Florida. And then finally, Chapter 8 is the CIP for the authority's projects. It has the cost estimates, again, for just the authority's projects, as well as a planning schedule. So you can see here the anticipated time frame for each of these projects from planning out through construction for the potential future brackish groundwater facility, ASR facility expansion, and then the pipeline projects. And with that, I believe we're requesting a motion to approve or accept the authority's Integrated Regional Water Supply Plan 2025 update by Crollo, June 2025.
Are there any questions on the presentation from the members?
No, sir.
No questions? I'll entertain a motion.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to accept the authority's Integrated Regional Water Supply Plan for 2025 update. Is there any further discussion? Any opposition to the motion? That passes unanimously. Thank you. We're going to move on to item number 4, the 5-year capital improvement plan and 20-year capital needs assessment. We have Mr. Knowles presenting.
Morning, members of the board. Mike Knowles with Authority Staff presenting regular agenda item number 4. This is the 5-year capital improvement plan, 20-year capital needs assessment. There will be a motion to consider approving our capital plans at the conclusion of this presentation. I'll be going over the schedule for developing our capital plans, an overview of the 5-year and 20-year budgets and project types, as well as highlighting our projects, key projects in the 5-year CIP, addressing any questions you have before going to the motion. So the draft CIP plans were shared with your professional staff at 2 professional staff meetings, and we incorporated comments that we heard back in April from the board when this was presented as a draft to now present to you a final version today. The numbers remain unchanged from the April presentation, with 18 total projects identified over the next 20 years, 8 of which are regional water transmission mains, 4 of which are in our 5-year CIP in some state of either design or construction. We have 5 water supply projects, 2 of which are in our 5-year CIP, and then 5 system-wide benefit projects, 2 of which are in our 5-year CIP. So looking at the numbers, budget-wise, we have $11 million allocated for system-wide benefits in our 5-year CIP, $29 million for transmission main projects, and $619 million for water supply projects, totaling $659 million for our 5-year CIP. You can see by the projected spending, the next 3 fiscal years represent the bulk of that spending, with the amount of grant money that's been secured being utilized in the next 2 fiscal years. And looking at our 20-year CNA, which is inclusive of the 5-year CIP, we have $40 million set aside for, or earmarked for system-wide benefit projects, $265 million for water transmission main projects, and $891 million for water supply projects, totaling $1.196 billion. Again, the next 3 years represent the largest spending for capital projects, with another uptick in spending culminating in fiscal year 2034 with our next water supply project. Highlighting the projects in our 5-year CIP, we have our surface water supply expansion project, which is composed of 2 projects, the Peace River Regional Reservoir number 3, which represents the storage, pumping, and conveyance portion of the surface water supply project, coupling that with our PRF expansion, which is the treatment portion or component. Altogether, those 2 projects produce an allocation of 18 MGD to satisfy the contractual requirements in our master water supply plan or contract. Two of our transmission main projects currently under construction. On the left is the first stick of pipe going in for the Phase 2B pipeline project. It's 13 miles of 42-inch diameter water transmission main serving growing demands in western Charlotte County. Having started construction just a little over a year ago, we now have just over 6 miles of pipe installed for that project. For Phase 3C pipeline, which is approximately 8 miles of 42-inch diameter pipe serving growing demands in northeast Sarasota County, happy to say that pipeline has been installed, pressure tested, disinfected, and we have our valve turning ceremony scheduled for June 18th for the pipeline portion of that project. There's still the storage and pumping components of that project located at our 3A pump station, and those improvements are estimated to start construction towards the end of this calendar year. The other two transmission main projects in our 5-year CIP. The first one is the Phase 3C extension pipeline. This will be a 36 or 42-inch diameter transmission main extending north from the Phase 3C pipeline towards University. I know at our April board meeting, Commissioner Beard, you were asking about a timeline for that feasibility study. So we intend to bring that feasibility study to the August board meeting to start that process. And that's due to be done by January of 26. So that will be presented at the February 26th board meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you. The fourth pipeline project is correlated with the Kings Highway widening. We're currently collecting SUE data to locate that 24-inch transmission main and work with the roadway designers to try to avoid any kind of conflict associated with the road widening project through DeSoto County, and that's due to start construction December of 2029.
Is that the one Commissioner Langford and I are supposed to throw some dirt on?
Yeah, I think that's it. Well, there could be another one too, and around Kingsway Circle.
Okay, remember, I can't remember. Okay,
Yeah,
thank you, sir.
they both need some dirt put on them.
You have golden shovels for that?
Yeah, we need some golden shovels.
The two system-wide benefit projects in our 5-year CIP, we have the Water Resources and Construction Department building. It's a 5,000 square foot administrative laboratory building to replace the existing 60-plus-year-old water resource building that the authority refers to as the ranch house. And then we have the RV Griffin Reserve solar array, which is a proposed 2-megawatt solar array on RV Griffin Reserve. I know Commissioner Cutzinger last time had some questions about the solar array project. We've bumped that out one more fiscal year to start in fiscal year 27 with preliminary design, with the idea of looking for additional grant funding to make that project more viable and shorten the payback period. Looking at when we're going to get hard numbers from our contractors, whether they be from competitive bids or our guaranteed maximum price. This is the schedule laid out for all the CIP projects that we've discussed today. For the Phase 3C project, the pumping and storage component, we're anticipating bringing that guaranteed maximum price amendment to the August board meeting. For the Peace River facility expansion, also anticipating bringing that guaranteed maximum price to August. For volume 1 of the PR3 project, which represents the 9 billion gallon reservoir, we anticipate bringing the contractor's bids to the October board meeting. And then for volume 3 of the PR3, which is the reservoir pump station, we anticipate the GMP amendment in August. And then volume 4, which represents the 84-inch diameter pipe associated with PR3, that GMP amendment would also be to October. And the last volume of work, volume 5, is our mitigation plan. We anticipate, as we get closer to closing out the district permit, knowing what kind of mitigation credits we may need to purchase, anticipate bringing those to the August board meeting to reserve those wetland credits. And then the contractor's bid for actually performing on-site mitigation, we'll get that as at the same time as our volume 1 bids. So we present those in October, as well as potentially any federal credits that we would need to purchase associated with the Army Corps 404 permit. That concludes the presentation today. I'd be happy to answer any questions the board has before going to the motion.
Any member comments? No member comments? Okay. Well, I will be entertaining a motion.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
motion to approve the, I've got to make sure I have the right one. Motion to approve the 5-year capital improvement plan with a 20-year capital needs assessment for 2026 through 2020, or 2045.
Second. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Any opposition to the motion? That passes unanimously. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
We move on to item number 5, the 2025 Project Financing Package 1.
Morning, Mr. Chair, members of the board, and Leah, your staff. I'm just going to be teeing this up for my team here. I have with me Tom Giblin, our bond counsel from Neighbors Giblin Nickerson, as well as Natalie Sidor, the authority's financial advisor from Pratt. On our agenda this morning, Tom's going to be discussing the changes and updates to our master bond resolution and provide you a motion for your consideration. He's then going to hand it over to Natalie, who is going to discuss the particulars of the Series 2025 A, B, and C bonds. We talk about the schedule and next steps on those bonds, and then as well present a motion for your consideration.
So we have 2 separate motions, and they have to be read in its entirety into the record.
Well, if you would like, but I believe that Mr. Giblin has allowed us just to use the title of the resolution of just the 2025-0708, et cetera, instead of reading the entire
As long as
4
it,
pages.
as long as it meets the statutes.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you.
But if you do want to read it, please go ahead.
If legal is telling us it's okay to do like a hybrid read, then that's fine.
Good morning. I'm Tom Giblin with Neighbors Giblin and Nickerson. We serve as bond counsel to the authority. Today we have 2 resolutions for your consideration. First one is the amended and restated bond resolution. By way of background, every time you issue senior debt, you issue under what we call the master resolution. That contains all the security provisions for the bondholders. It contains under what conditions you can issue additional debt. It contains the rate covenant, which is under what circumstances you have to raise rates to pay the bondholders. It contains provisions relating to how you collect revenues, how you store the revenues, and how you parse out the revenues. The document's been around for about 20 years. It's dated, it's old. And a lot of changes have occurred in the last 20 years in terms of securities law, regulatory compliance, industry standards for the public finance industry. They've all changed. And so we thought this is a good opportunity for the authority to take a fresh look at the master resolution and update it. Let's get rid of some of the old stuff that is no longer applicable. We had a lot of different things that made reference to old bond issues that were paid off. So we wanted to get rid of that. We wanted to make the provisions as simple as possible, more understandable, rather than all the legalese and the finance gobbledygook that sometimes hits these documents. We wanted to make sure we were complying with the laws as they're currently written, and finally, give you some flexibility in terms of how you comply with these provisions. Give the authority a little bit of a benefit of the doubt in terms of not having to hire consulting engineers every time you sneeze. And so a lot of the different things that we try to include here is simplify things, bring things up to speed, and that was the goal that we had. We worked with your staff, we worked with the finance team, we had several different conference calls in terms of putting this all together. I think we ended up with something that's going to be a lot more user-friendly for the authority. And so if you decide you want to go forward with it, first action would be to go ahead and to make a motion and adopt the amended and restated master bond resolution. And you don't have to read the whole title, as long as we make reference to, I believe the number is
2025-07.
Yep, I think we'll be fine.
Any questions for staff? Do I have a motion to approve resolution 2025-07?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Second. We have motion and second to approve resolution 2025-07. Is there any further discussion? Any opposition to the motion? That passes unanimously.
Because the next issue that's going to come up is the particulars, the series resolution as well as the different financial parameters for issuing the 2025 A, B, and C bonds. And after the presentation, then we would ask you to go ahead and adopt the series resolution.
Good morning, Natalie Sador with Prague, serving as the authority's financial advisor. I plan to provide you with a similar update that we gave at the April board meeting related to the Series 2025 bonds. We're planning to issue 3 series of bonds. The first one, the Series 2025A, will finance a portion of the expansion project, including the Peace River facility expansion, the pump station piece of the reservoir, and mitigation costs. We've been working with staff to evaluate the costs and benefits of a variety of structuring alternatives for this particular piece over the past few months. And really our goals we're focused on, we wanted to make sure we're taking into account your existing debt and any plans for future debt, but also look at easing into the rates versus just having 1 year of a big rate shock with this large of a project. So we've come up with a structure that accomplishes those goals. We're looking at a 30-year term, interest only through 2033, and then using a partial capitalized interest structure through the construction period of this project, again to help ramp up and ease into those new rates. On this piece, we're looking at an all-in borrowing cost. This was based on market conditions a few weeks ago in the high 4% range.
Question.
Yep.
Our bond rating, the United States, or the U.S. bond rating has dropped. I mean, we don't have a AAA bond rating anymore. That being said, is this going to be fixed or is this going to be a variable rate? Because I'm very concerned in regards to interest rates increasing significantly.
Yep. The rate will be fixed once we price the bonds. So I'll go through the schedule at the end, but the rate will be fixed. We plan to price the bonds at the end of July. Once that bond pricing occurs, your rate will be fixed for that full 30-year period.
Okay.
Moving on to the 2025B bonds, this piece will fund the authority's portion of the Phase 2B pipeline project. We are also looking at a 30-year term on this piece, capitalized interest through the construction period, which is a lot shorter construction period than the Series 2025A and level debt service. Given that it's a similar structure, we're again looking at an all-in cost in the mid to high 4% range on this piece. The last piece is a small refunding. The Series 2025C bonds will refund the authority's Series 2015 bonds for savings. Again, it's small, the savings are small, but since we are already doing a bond issue, it makes sense from a cost and economies of scale standpoint to include this piece as long as there's some sort of savings. If we get to the pricing and there's not savings on refunding these bonds, we would just exclude this piece from the final package. So in terms of schedule and next steps, today we are requesting for approval of the series resolution and the master bond resolution, which was just accomplished. We plan to, later this month, talk to the rating agencies. We plan to get a rating from S&P and Fitch, which is what we did last year on the Series 2024 bonds. We plan to price the bonds the end of July. Right now we're estimating July 22nd. Some of that will be driven by market conditions. If the market is not good, if we need to wait, we have the flexibility to move that date around as needed to make sure market conditions are favorable. And then we would look at a bond closing and funding in early August. So I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for staff? Okay, I'm looking for a motion to approve resolution 2025-08.
So moved, Mr. Chair.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Any opposition to the motion? That passes unanimously. Thank you. Move on to item number 6, the Peace River Facility Expansion Design Build Services Contract Amendment 2.
For the record, Mike Knowles with Authority staff presenting regular agenda item number 6. This is the Peace River Facility Expansion Design Build Services Contract Amendment number 2. And there will be a motion for consideration of Contract Amendment number 2 at the conclusion of this presentation. I'll be going over our approach for the treatment plant facility expansion, talk about the schedule for that project, and then the scope being considered today, as well as give an example of value engineering on this project, and then address any questions the board has before going to a motion. So about a year ago when we started the Progressive Design Build project, we anticipated it was going to be more of a linear project, bring all the components up to design point, maybe 90%, progress towards permitting all of our facilities at once, and then start construction in kind of linear fashion. What we realized back in about February is with that linear approach, it meant we would be done with construction in December of 2028, and that would miss the mark for delivering water for our master water supply contract. So one of the benefits of having Progressive Design Build is we can work with the designer and the contractor and come up with a variety of options to kind of crash that schedule. And what we're proposing and what we're following is more of a compartmental approach. It's very similar to our pipeline projects that are Progressive Design Build. You start where you can get your design done first, your permitting done first, land rights, and you begin there and you work on other components while construction is going on. So with this more compartmentalized approach, with the final design amendment being considered today, we're looking at a guaranteed maximum price at the next board meeting, but that essentially takes about 9 months off the schedule conservatively, possibly more. So this is just a graphical representation of our initial project timeline as laid out back in February, finishing December 2028. And this is our current approach with more compartmentalized options with the final design amendment highlighted there for today's consideration. So the scope of services in this amendment includes developing long lead item equipment purchase packages, so we can purchase those through owner direct purchase and have realized tax savings. Also issuing construction set of plans at 387 sheets, continuing and securing our permitting and project coordination through April of 2026. At the April board meeting, I know Commissioner Cutzinger and also Commissioner DeSoto appreciate the value engineering being done on the project, but wanted to make sure that we weren't increasing the operation and maintenance of the facility long term, and that we are doing our due diligence looking at these opportunities for cost savings today, so we were not increasing costs in the future. So just a quick example of that. As I mentioned, we worked on the filter under drain options. We're looking at different materials. We have the Progressive Design Build team approach us with the opportunity to look at different materials. In this case, we have stainless steel under drains in our planes 3 and 4, but they want us to take a look at the HDPE product as an alternative. So we have them lay out the pros and cons of those two options. With the HDPE under drains, one of the major benefits is it's cheaper than stainless steel, but it could take longer to install with the grouting that's required. On the stainless steel side, they're usually lower in profile, and they can be repaired individually, but they're typically more expensive than HDPE. So next step for us, we have the contractor go out and solicit quotes so we can have a real world comparison of what cost savings we're looking at, whether it's $30,000 or in this case, $500,000 by considering alternative material. And then last step for us is to go and talk to the people that are using these products. The authority does not want to be a guinea pig. We don't want to be the first people to install and use these products, but we want to talk to other people at different plants to make sure that they're getting the bang for their buck. And thanks to Jennifer Gladice with Corpus Christi Water, they confirmed that with a similar treatment method as ours with chloramines, they've had HDPE filters in service since 2000 with no issues. So that's a 25-year installation. And then we also looked at case studies. There's a Wichita, Kansas City installation that was installed back in 2000. That's the photo in the upper left. And if you can't tell by the aged cover of the O&M manual on the far right, that is from an installation back in 1979 in Hartford City, Indiana, that is still in use today. So the installations, looking at 50-plus year design life for those products, which is very similar to stainless steel. And with that, we felt comfortable moving ahead with the alternative material. That concludes my presentation. I'd be happy to address any questions you have.
Any questions for staff?
I got some questions.
Sir, you recognize.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So knowing that there's a lot of costs that's going up with a lot of different things, do we have any type of financial safeguards in place that will prevent cost overruns during different phases of the design of construction?
It's a great question, and with the progressive design build model, it builds in our contingency bucket, I call it. So right now, there's about $36 million identified as contingency of the overall water treatment plant cost. And there's a risk register identifying what those funds could be used for, but cost escalation is one of those line items in that risk register. Tariffs is another one that we've got some money allocated in there, but overall that contingency bucket is what we utilize as we continue design and eventually construction to handle those costs that come up.
Okay. Are there any financial penalties or performance incentives for the contractor to stay on or ahead of schedule?
Great question. We're actually going through negotiations right now for that GMP. Right now, currently, there's no cost benefit to the contractor for finishing early. That's a conversation that we could have. There are LDs associated with being late for substantial or final completion.
Okay, and how often will the board receive progress updates and in what format regarding this particular project?
The format, the updates, we have our standard reporting, which is every board meeting, but as far as presentations, it could be whatever the board would like. We could do, with a lot of construction starting up, we could do a progress update at every board meeting, keep it to a minimum, but just give you an overall, here's where the spending is, the design and construction for all these projects.
Okay. Well, the only reason I'm having this question, I mean, Doge is the big thing right now. We all know that. And, you know, there's a lot of costs that are going up and a lot of things that I've been looking into as far as budgeting goes and projects and things of that nature. And I just want to make sure that we're staying on top of our game, you know, on, you know, what's being spent and really tracking what's going on, because we're at a breaking point in this country, and with the AAA bond rating, we're losing that and interest rates going up. So we're going to probably begin to see significant cost increase. And so that's the reason why I just want to stay ahead of the game and just really keep that in the forefront of our mind as far as when we're doing these projects and moving forward. So I appreciate that, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
And thank you for those comments. Yeah, I mean, to that point, we had 2 wastewater treatment plant bids that we opened up in the last several months, and they were budget busters. And if it wasn't just a few million, it was tens of millions of dollars. I mean, just blowing us out of the water here. So, you know, with the tariffs and things like that, you know, you mentioned it was included in your contingency plan. The tariffs?
We have a line item where we've done an estimate, yes.
Yeah, because our engineer's estimate of costs were basically worthless when the bids came in. And that was the best available data at that time. So yeah, it's moving, and it's moving quickly on these costs. And it can be scary if you're a, you know, county government, municipality, especially on these water projects. There's specialty items. A lot of that stuff maybe isn't made here or fabricated here, and we're relying on natural resources and supply chains outside of the country, and it adds time delays and costs. And trying to just get your arm wrapped around it all on projects like this, you know, do we have everything covered? Have we looked at the most updated numbers?
And to that point, you know, part of our approach a year ago, actually a little over a year ago, we brought on Archer Western as a construction manager at risk. So not only did we have our engineer's estimates, which I know lately it's tough to nail down, but we had a contractor's perspective looking at those, and we're using their numbers as far as our projections. So it's really, we feel like that's one step above maybe the engineer's estimate that we got, is to have that contractor's breakdown of material, equipment, and labor.
Well, I mean, nothing's perfect, but you know, you just have to exhaust every avenue to try and nail down those estimates. Any other comments on this item? Okay, I'm looking for a motion to approve and authorize the executive director to execute Peace River Facility Expansion Design Build Services Agreement Amendment 2 to Warren Smith Incorporated for fee not to exceed $5,728,602.
So moved, Mr. Chair.
We have a motion and a second to move the item. Is there any further discussion? Is there any opposition to the motion? That passes unanimously. Thank you. We'll move on to General Counsel's report. Item number 1, Charlotte County Model Airplane Club Agreement.
Yes, as you know, we're going into a major building on the property at the RV Griffin. One of the things that we have on it is a model airplane runway and building. And so when we go to construct, that will be an area that's involved in the temporary construction areas, and they will have to be displaced. Staff has had meetings already with them. They've been very cooperative. I wanted to give you a status on it. One of the things I'll be doing, I believe it's September 1st, is under the license agreement we have with them to give them access on to across the actual authority's property, because we own property out there as well as the district. We're going to be terminating that. We have to give them 30 days notice. We'll be terminating September 1 for October 1. We're also continuing to work with them on, there's things that they can take off of the property, they can put a building on there, they've got other things to have them that they can save and potentially reuse. So we're trying to work with them, and I know our executive director is as well, to find a way to help them relocate, and but we do have to have them off the property. And we've also worked with the Water Management District, and they understand and agree with us going forward.
You know, there's a reason I don't gamble, because if I would have had a bet on what does the water authority have to do with an airplane model agreement, I would lose the house.
Well, this was actually because it's a Southwest Florida Water Management property open for recreation, and so they approved it. But to get to it, they have to come across our property, and that's what the license agreement is.
Any question on that item?
And there's no vote on that. On the second one, I'm doing something I typically don't do. I usually bring you contracts and bring this down when the other side has already signed them. But because this is an easement with Sarasota County for property that's needed to complete the 2B pipeline. And so we want to be able to move a little more quickly on this, so to get it before Sarasota County. And you know, the meetings get a little irregular on the summer with each one of the counties. So I wanted to get today an approval for the chair. This is a draft of the interlocal agreement, which goes along with the easement. And the idea is it's just the typical pipeline easement. We're going through the fire break of the park, Mayaca Park. So this is we've been dealing with the Sarasota County Parks, Recreation, and Natural Resources. Part of this is just the payment isn't for the easement. The payment, the lump sum of $100,000 is for maintenance they're going to have to do. So we come in and disturb the vegetation, they'll have to go back and, you know, in theory, have to remove exotics over time and things like that. And rather than having us responsible for the next 50 years to do that, we negotiated with them to provide them with a lump sum payment, and then they would do all of the maintenance that's required on the fire break for environmental plants and basic things. We obviously will still do the maintenance to make sure there's a road to get to our pipeline and maintenance on the pipeline. And so it's a relatively standard form easement. We've been working with them for over a year. We're down to the wire. It was just not the time to get it onto the Sarasota board and approved by staff. So I wanted to get this done and then move a motion to authorize the chair to sign it in a substantial form in case they have some non-substantive changes to this version of the draft.
Okay, just to confirm, I've been handed, it looks like 2 separate documents, the interlocal agreement between the authority in Sarasota and then the easement. Were these all posted online?
They were not. I'm bringing them forward quickly to get an approval. And we'll have to bring it back when Sarasota has signed it, but I want to get authorization to send it over with the idea that next August 2nd board meeting, we're ready to go with it, and we can tell their staff, this has been, if it stays in this format, this has been pre-approved by the board.
Okay, but the easement is what you want board direction on today?
No, board direction and the interlocal, they travel together.
Okay. But the fact that they weren't noticed to the public for comment.
I can still bring them up. Yeah, just because you're not doing a final approval, you'll see it again on April.
But we're taking action.
You are taking action, but nothing prevents me from bringing something on the agenda for you to take an action under the general counsel report. And it's not, and this has no budget consequence because we're not doing it a final. I just want your approval to go forward and tell them that this is something we'll approve if you can approve it over the time.
Well, it may not concern budget, but it's policy. and the board is taking action, I kind of have an issue with taking action, this board taking action, it's not been publicly advertised for for public comment if anybody wanted to comment on this. I guess that's the issue. How time sensitive is this?
We want to be able to have the construction going in September, so we were looking at having it go through their board and then bring back to you on August 2nd.
So this
This is to assist me to get this finalized.
can this
on
be
their board.
placed on the next agenda?
It will be placed on the
No.
next agenda and final. Yeah.
No, my point is this, to take action, I'm just uncomfortable taking action, board action on an item that has not been publicly advertised.
But we can put it on the next one. I just wanted to get you, we can get you informed on it this time and
Okay, and then
ready
sign
to
it
go.
next.
And then we can sign it on August 2nd.
Okay.
We don't have a final document for you to sign, but what I was trying to do is be able to get a vote from you all too. And it's okay to sign a vote. We could maybe a consensus, just that we can go forward, make this offer to them. It's gonna be locked up so they can put on their board meeting to get it approved over the summer. So we have it in time to get on our agenda for August 2nd.
So the motion won't be to have me sign this today,
Right.
it's just to get it on the next agenda.
Yeah, and to have it, so I can represent to them that our board is good with the proposals conceptually that are in here.
Okay, so you're looking for a motion to put on the next agenda the interlocal agreement between the Peace River Manasota Regional Water Supply Authority in Sarasota County and the non-exclusive utility easement and temporary construction easement agreement.
Correct. That's the motion.
Okay,
So moved, Mr. Chair.
Second.
we have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion?
Yes, I have a question.
Yes, sir.
I'm hearing two things. So you're asking for a vote or you're asking for consensus?
Consensus is fine. You don't have to have a motion on it.
Okay.
But we are giving
But it's
consensus
to
on
put
that.
it, it's to put it on the next agenda.
Correct.
Okay.
So yes, we can do it with a motion for putting it on the next agenda. There's no final action nowhere.
Okay. Okay, so is there any further discussion? Any opposition? That passes unanimously. Okay, thank you. And we have the executive director's report next.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just have one thing, and Mike Knowles kind of alluded to it, but we're happy to announce that the next leg of the 3C pipeline, or the Phase 3 pipeline, is going into service. I think you all were invited to what we're calling a valve opening ceremony in Sarasota County. Just want to extend the invitation to everybody in the room. If you're interested, it's June 18th at 10 p.m. at the intersection of Lorraine Roads and Fruitville Roads. So just want to get that out there.
10 a.m., right?
At 10 a.m., yes. If you didn't get an invite, please see Rachel and we'll make sure you get one. So that's all I have.
Okay, thank you. We have the routine status reports. Were we just gonna go through those, or just, anybody has any questions?
Typically,
Yeah.
only if there's questions.
Okay, any questions on the routine status reports? Okay, we're gonna move on to board member comments. We will start to my right, Mr. Langford.
Yeah, I'm gonna go back to something that you and Commissioner Bearden talked about a while ago with Mike on these prices and different things, and I've been privy to some stuff that I never was aware of before because I never had to deal with it, but I deal with some stuff now. I'm serving a little different capacity at one of the other places that I wear a hat at, but a lot of these prices that we deal with is I know there's a lot of unknowns because I look at some of these projects that get bid out sometimes and wonder how in the world does anybody sit down and get every I dotted and T crossed to know exactly how many pennies it's going to take to put in a 4-mile pipeline or 5-mile pipeline or whatever. But also just looking at things, there's a lot of stuff that we get bid, and not just governmentally but privately too. There's such a stinking markup on this stuff that ain't even, it's almost criminal, some of the stuff you see. I know, and I say that I know of a deal here a while back on a silk fence deal that was done, and kind of had a little insight on what went on with that deal, and I mean, they had a 60% markup on this silk fence deal. And that gets passed on to somebody, you know, and I guess that makes these $150,000, $200,000 homes worth $400,000 because of all the extras that everybody else added on to every little job they done when they could have still done it and made money, but they made too much money in my opinion. So that's just my 2 cents worth that if we've got to a point now that a $50,000 job bid out at $200,000 anymore. And it's, to me, it's just, it ain't even, it don't even make good sense. It's just highway robbery.
Mr. Beard, you want to
I
comment?
agree with you, Commissioner. I've seen issues in regards to, I can tell you just in our own county, that we have one bidder bidding on our roads. When you have one bidder bidding on those roads that are taking those jobs, guess what? They can name the price on anything. So I would encourage all these municipalities to go out and look for people to bid on these jobs so we can drive this cost down, because it's getting kind of insane. I mean, we're paying $8.5 million for a 1 mile road right
I'm there with you.
now. Yeah. So I agree with you. I completely agree with you. I'm trying to figure out that solution too on how to drive that cost down. But when you only have one bidder going out for that bid, they can name that price, and they know that they're the only bidder.
Well, what's worse is they know our budget. You know, so they know the budget, and sometimes it is hard to get bidders in the bid pool. You know, you like to get multiple bids, but sometimes you only get one. So your choice is not to do the project, wait, put it back out, but we're under time constraints, right? Everyone wants the infrastructure done now, so you gotta make the decisions. You go with the single bid. So, yeah.
And sometimes in reality, I found out too that your low bidder ain't your best bang for the buck.
We're dealing with that right now in Charlotte County. It's brutal. You're absolutely right. You know, to your point about what is the real price, I had windows bid out of my house. I got 25-year-old windows. Price came in at $70,000. And I about fell out of my chair. And then he starts to say, well, if you sign now, we'll take $20,000 off. We're running a special. They took another 10 off. And then they said, oh, if you put our sign out in your yard and leave it there for 90 days, we'll give you another $5,000 discount. So, you know, the price ended up going from $70,000 down to $38,000. I practically threw the guy out of my house. And I still have the same window. To your point, what is the price? Who knows what the price is? Like, it was the craziest thing, and I hear that's going on not just in our county, all over the place. These window guys, not that I'm not naming any specific company, but, you know, they're all doing the same, you know.
Well, I was going to ask you if you lived in a glass house or something.
No, I do not. Yeah, no, well, I got some windows, but not $70,000 worth of windows, and not made of gold.
I didn't know what your blinds was going to cost.
Okay, so I needed blinds. I ordered myself online and installed them.
Yeah.
And I saved a fortune. That's another one. Anyway, okay, Mr. Cunningham, any comments, sir?
No comments, thank you.
Mr. Beard, anything else?
No, sir.
Okay. We're going to public comments now. Individuals who previously submitted a request. Well, this is for people who previously spoke. This was always odd to me, this one. Nobody spoke, so do I offer up another 3 minutes?
You don't have to. You don't have to, but you can.
I don't think you got no takers.
Yeah, I know. Will anybody wish to speak on any water supply authority business? You'll have 3 minutes. Please come forward. State your name for the record. Okay, I'm not seeing anybody coming forward. For announcements, our next authority board meeting next authority board meeting and FY 2026 budget public hearing will be Wednesday, August 6th, 2025 at 9:30 a.m. at the Manatee County Administration Center. And future board meetings, October 1st, 2025, DeSoto County Administrative Building, and December 3rd, Charlotte County Administration Center. No further questions. We've completed our agenda. This meeting is adjourned. Yeah, I'm not going anywhere.